That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Pale Blue Eye, the sixth film directed by Scott Cooper, which is based on Louis Bayard's 2003 novel of the same name. Netflix is releasing it theatrically December 23rd, 2022, just in time for Christmas, and it will be streaming on their platform January 6th, 2023.
Do I know Scott's other films?
Yes, we reviewed Antlers, which I liked parts of, and that was a definite step into genre territory, and this is kind of a continuation of that. He's an actor turned director. Back in 2009, his debut was Crazy Heart, which Jeff Bridges won his Oscar for. He also directed Black Mass with Johnny Depp, and this is his third time working with Christian Bale after Out of the Furnace in 2013 and Hostiles in 2017.
I did not care for this movie.
Boy, I did not either, and I was kind of looking forward to it because I like Christian Bale, and I was intrigued by the premise.
I thought it was tedious.
Very tedious, very languid.
The basic story, it's 1830, New York.
West Point Academy.
West Point Academy. One of the cadets is killed, so the people in charge hire a detective played by Christian Bale to investigate.
Augustus Landor.
And we spent quite a bit of time with him, kind of just, moving around, trying to figure out what's going on. There is a cadet, Edgar Allan Poe, who takes an interest in the case and offers to assist Christian Bale.
Played by Harry Melling.
And Christian Bale's like, yeah, come on, I'll pay you, just be discreet. They kind of don't really figure out anything, and someone else is killed, another cadet. So
something notable that you're missing, before Christian Bale is even hired, the corpse of the hanged cadet has been mutilated. The heart's been cut out.
Sure. But so two people are killed. Christian Bale, as the detective, can't figure anything out. So the doctor of the academy is also like the medical examiner, I guess.
Dr. Marquis, played by Toby Jones.
And we find out two things. Number one, Christian Bale, his daughter committed suicide as a result of the trauma she incurred from being sexually assaulted by 3 cadets from West Point. So these 2 cadets who were killed, Christian Bale did that, like revenge. And he's trying to kill the third one.
Who absconds.
But that one gets away. The doctor, the medical examiner, we know something's fishy about him because when his wife, played by Gillian Anderson, and his 2 children...
Lucy Boynton and Harry Lawtey.
Their family has an ancestor who was a witch hunter. And this person wrote like a manual on how to conjure spells and capture witches. And so there's like some stuff they need, like the heart of a hanged man, and
because there's a spell for immortality because Leah, played by Lucy Boynton, is sick.
So they're trying to successfully conjure this immortality spell. So she is seducing Edgar Allan Poe because he's going to be part of the sacrifice to like make the spell happen. But Edgar Allan Poe finds out that Christian Bale's responsible for the deaths, but he kind of is like, we'll figure it out. And then Christian Bale figures out that it's probably the doctor and his family who are responsible for like the mutilations of the bodies. Because Christian Bale knows he killed these people, but he knows he didn't rip the heart out. So everything culminates with Christian Bale showing up at the doctor's house, and the 2 children are like casting this spell. They're about to kill Edgar Allan Poe, but then he stops it. The house collapses, kills the kids. The end. The doctor agrees to like resign and move on, and then Christian Bale never gets hemmed up for the murders. That's it. Man, I was so distracted by what are the odds that this school hired this detective to investigate a murder he committed?
He was a venerable detective and they had limited options.
But then the medical examiner is responsible, his family's responsible for this like devil worship and shit.
There are a whole lot of strange coincidences here that when you add them all together and the final tabulations aren't really that interesting. Such as Edgar Allan Poe being the one to put everything together only because the bar wench, Patsy, played by Charlotte Gainsbourg, who is sleeping with Christian Bale's character gives him some key information about what happened to the daughter. But as the audience, we know something real fishy is going on with Augustus Landor, who every time they said his last name, I kept thinking Lando Calrissian.
Which one's Landor?
Christian Bale.
Oh, right.
That you see that he's in mourning about something because you get snippets in his mind of this willowy blonde. So we know that there's some secret that's going to come to the fore, and it does, of course, in a kind of a hysterical interaction between Harry Melling and Christian Bale, where all is explained for you.
I don't even have that many notes because I just feel like the film just dragged on for the first 90 minutes, and then when we get to the kids are trying to cast this spell, but even when we find out Christian Bale killed, that revelation is so okay.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
Fine, it's one of those films, I guess. But also trying to give origins, this fictional romanticization of Edgar Allan Poe, where you get the origin supposedly of his poem Lenore, and of course the Telltale Heart. And as he wakes up having been dreamt this poetry. And Edgar Allan Poe is a fantastic poet. Annabelle Lee, one of my favorite poems of all time. But that his dead mother is the one speaking to him from beyond the grave, this poetry, which is just kind of mentioned and then dropped.
So an important plot point is that first dead body with the heart cut out. There's a portion of a letter in its hand, but the hand is closed because of rigor mortis. I almost said rigor mortis. Rigor mortis. So Christian Bale gets the little note, and then for 30 minutes, he and Edgar Allan Poe are trying to figure out what it says, which culminates with this scene in Christian Bale's office where they're decoding this letter that I thought was so corny.
There are a lot of scenes where we're just having this circular conversation about one thing that...
Well, then moving to another scene just like that, what's his name? The old man who knows about...
Oh God, Robert Duvall is here as an occultist playing Jean Pepe.
He's a professor at West Point, but he's a recluse, and he's the foremost expert on the occult. So they go to him, and it's oh God, I thought that was so corny. He happens to have a book because Christian Bale draws a picture of a symbol that he believes was used for devil worshipping, which is a circle with a triangle.
An upside down triangle in it. And it's the circle on the floor in the ice house where these rituals are happening.
Nothing unique about this circle. And immediately Robert Duvall's character is oh, that's the blah, 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 the blah, blah, blah. That's used for this. And and I have this super rare book.
The tome of Henri de Clèves.
That explains it to you. And then he throws it at Edgar Allan Poe and says, read it in silence. Just turn to the middle of the book. It's in French. So he's okay, this huge book, he just turns to the exact page, reads it, and then Robert Duvall's character says, well, the person, this old ancestor, who we find out is the ancestor of the medical examiner, he made 3 copies of this book that are super rare, but they were taken away or hidden. They're super... people who collect these books really want it because there's a spell in it for immortality.
Mm-hmm. And Toby Jones just has that book in his office.
And then when Christian Bale goes to the medical examiner's office, that book, this super rare book with this spell for immortality, is just chilling on a side table.
And there is no title on the spine. He just literally goes to a bookshelf and plucks it off
I
the
thought
shelf.
that was so
and
dumb.
Toby Jones just goes, I've never read that book.
And then in that scene where he sees the book, then Christian Bale's yelling at the medical examiner, and he's like, does your daughter speak with the dead?
Oh,
that took me out.
Yeah, well...
Then I just couldn't take anything seriously.
Then there's the superintendent of West Point, played by a very deflated-looking Timothy Spall, and Captain Hitchcock, played by Simon McBurney. And literally all these 2 old buzzards are doing is screaming, just screaming.
That was my final note. Lots of shouting, and then there's that thing, in a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, or in an episode of Scooby-Doo, where when they discover a clue, it's attention everyone, the blah blah blah, the blah blah blah, aha. I hate that. It just feels so it
was really
elementary.
It was really unappealing. And I don't... There's some shade thrown at James Fenimore Cooper, the author of Last of the Mohicans, which is interesting. I would have liked more maybe asides like that in this rather dry film, I guess, if I had to sit through it again. But Lucy Boynton, I feel, has nothing to do. Gillian Anderson is entertaining and over the top. I think Harry Melling is kind of the selling point.
Okay, I did think that he did a good job playing Edgar Allan Poe, but the thing is, Edgar Allan Poe looks crazy, and so does this man playing him. And every time he was on screen, I felt like he would if there were like a black comedy about Edgar Allan Poe, I feel like his characterization would have worked really well in that. But in this movie, every time he would be on screen, I would kind of giggle. Like
it was. I guess.
But he does a good job.
He does a good job, but it was also kind of lightly entertaining in that way, as compared to something like another movie where Edgar Allan Poe is played by John Cusack, investigating people mimicking crimes from his stories, played by John Cusack, directed by James McTeague, which is terrible. Christian Bale, I think, is the straight man here and is very dry. And for the first half hour of the film, I'm like, oh, this is basically A Few Good Men.
Oh. Well, it's also giving, like, his character in Amsterdam, like, this person trying to investigate. I mean, in Amsterdam, he's playing a doctor, but a doctor trying to investigate a crime. I feel like it was very similar vibe. Different hairdo, but very similar energy. Gillian Anderson, when she first meets Christian Bale, she's trying to, like, clock his somber nature, and then that's when he says, like, his wife is dead. And I thought her accent work, I don't know what she was doing. She sounded like she had, like, false teeth in.
Yeah, she's doing a very, like an over-enunciation.
I was giggling with that main scene, too.
And also when she has got Christian Bale at her dinner table being like, isn't my son handsome?
Yes. And then they're like, yeah, I know we're all extraordinary looking people. First of all, your husband is not cute and you're borderline, bitch. You need to calm down.
But no, Christian Bale's like, oh, I like both your kids are hot, basically.
Yeah, he does say that. I mean, they are good looking people, but...
But the score was by Howard Shore, who did the score for The Hobbit and many other films, which I was fine with. I also think it looks fine.
Yeah.
It was shot by Masanobu.
It's very dark.
Takiyanagi. And yes, it's very dark. So watching it at home on your screen might be...
You need to turn off all of the lights.
It's probably better for a theatrical experience, realistically. But I thought it looked good and it evokes a certain sense of period. But it just takes so long to get anywhere. And by the time we get there, I was so bored with it. Mm-hmm. And I got the sense that I probably would have enjoyed reading the book more, but only moderately so. Because this is the kind of pulp that you read on an airplane that's just highly romanticized... fictional recreation of this very notable literary
I've never
figure.
read those books like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies or whatever, but this feels like one of those to me, but like not fun at all.
No, I was just the most egregious thing about it is it was just boring.
What would you give it?
2. I
would give it 2 out of 5. I did not care for it. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.